Okay, with our forms ready, we can continue by creating the passenger class. So I'm gonna right click, click add and new class, and I'll just call it passenger. Alright, so let's create an outline of what we will need to code. This will serve as a flowchart that we can follow to make it easier for us to see what still needs to be coded. So the first thing, we need to create a few properties. So let me just write a comment here. Alright, so we need to create properties for name and seed row and column. We will also need to create a property that indicates if the passenger is on the waiting list. So this could be a boolean that says true or false whether the passenger is on waiting list. And we need to create a string property that will display error messages. Next, we will need to create a few constructors with different overloads. So the first constructor will be full passenger information. So it will have the name, the seed row, and the seed column. The next one will be a constructor with just the name. This one will be used when we search for a passenger that we want to delete. The next constructor will contain the name and whether the passenger is on waiting list. So it will contain the property that we are going to declare here that indicates whether the passenger is on the waiting list. So this one will of course be used when placing passenger on and off the waiting list. And finally, we will also need to create a blank constructor, and this one will be used simply to be able to access the properties and methods. So we will create a blank object of passenger and we will have access to all the properties and all the methods in the class. So we will have 4 constructors altogether. And of course, we will need a few methods. First, we will need a way to validate the passenger to make sure that valid name and seating information was entered by the user. So we are going to validate the passenger information for the name, row, and column. Next, we will need to validate if the seat is already taken. So we will create a method that checks if the seat is taken. Next, we will also need to be able to get the list of passengers' names. This is used when searching for passenger by name, and that passenger is to be deleted by the user. And remember that multiple passengers can have the same name. So we will create a method that does that will search the passenger by name and return a list of all passengers that have that name or that match the searched name. We will of course need to be able to also add passenger to the list and also to remove passenger from the list. So we will have 2 methods, one that adds passenger to the list and one that removes passenger from the list. And finally, we will need a way to count how many passengers have assigned seats. These are the passengers that are on the seating chart. So we will get the count of seated passengers, and of course we will also need to get a count of the passengers on the waiting list. So that's gonna be our last method. So this is the outline of what we will need to code in this class. So let's start coding.